Welcome into the Inside Carolina podcast the day after. We're sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt, Heels Win. With the day after comes the band. Buck Sanders, Jason Staples. Carolina beats Florida A&M 56-24 in Kenan Stadium on a rainy Saturday night, a little bit rainy Saturday night, monsoon tailgate. Buck, I'm going to come to you first since this is the first one of the year. What a great day. What a great show we had in the Bowls lot. The football game, plenty of good, some things that you sleep well after seeing, some things you don't sleep well after seeing, but your overall take on the lead up, the Inside Carolina live show, appreciate you joining in, and then what you saw in Kenan.
Yep. First of all, it was great to be back in the bowl slot. Good atmosphere, good crowd, a lot of energy in the bowl slot before the game. That was just fun to be around. As for the game itself, I have three major takeaways and maybe a few others that are take a undercard perspective. But overall, the only thing I walk away from this game not feeling as well about as I hope to have felt is the defense, and mainly in pass coverage. If you look at the running side of the ball, they only gave up 56 yards, 2.1 per carry. I think it was hard to focus on how well they were doing there because they were getting torched on the back end. So I walk away from that feeling like, what's it going to take to get this defense off the snide and start just playing hard-nosed, rock'em sock'em defense? And we didn't see it last night, and we wonder when we are going to see it. So, but other than that, there's a lot of great takeaways.
Jason, looking at the defense, and like I said, a lot of people have gotten where they used the good, the bad, the ugly format. I mean, we didn't steal it from anybody, but we did it like fifth.
Except for maybe Sergio Leone, right?
So I'm going to couch it as.
Now you got me hungry for spaghetti, Buck.
At 8 o'clock in the morning, which, by the way, we're recording this certainly early Sunday morning. You mentioned something, and when we were on the over-under podcast, Jason, when we were talking about sacks that the team could get, and you took the under, if my memory serves, and one of the reasons was the quick game that offense is used. Florida A&M walked in and did it, and pretty much neutralized Carolina's defensive line in the passing game. I think that's what we'll see all year. So I missed that over-under, I believe. But your take on what you saw from the front guys, because if the front guys are not getting pressure in the quick game, then the back seven, especially the back 4 or 5, better be good. And Carolina struggled last night.
Yeah, I thought it was a mix. I mean, I don't think we should take too much one way or the other from what we saw last night. I mean, it is the first game of the season in a new, under a new regime on that side of the ball. And so you're going to expect to have the most to clean up between game 1 and game 2. And this is where having a week 0 game before you go up the mountain is a good thing. I mean, I think next week is going to tell us a lot more about what we can expect from this team on that side of the ball. I did think that it wasn't just about the sacks. I mean, I do think that the probably the most disappointing thing about this particular game was the overall, I wouldn't say lack of pressure, but not enough pressure. It's not a matter of sacks. I want to see the quarterback actually being hurried and bothered. And I felt like Musa at different points was just not, he was too comfortable back there at times, and that's something that you don't want to see. Now, there are other factors in play other than just, well, the defensive line needs to get after him more and needs to get sure, that's true. And I would have liked to have seen Des Evans, for example, be more disruptive overall than he was. I thought Rucker, by the way, looked very good as a pass rusher yet again. I mean, the dude is just a football player.
He should get more snaps, right? He should just get more snaps.
And I think as the year goes by, if what we saw last night is the case all year, you're going to see Rucker get more snaps and more in situations that matter more. I mean, that's just the way it works. But you're still going to give, especially game one, you're going to give more guys reps. I mean, you think about this. This game, I'm looking at the win probability chart. The lowest win probability of the game, which has to be a glitch in the chart, is 92.6% at play number 166, and I think that's just because there was a some sort of weird thing that happened. That's a glitch. Other than that, the lowest win probability of the game was 94%, 94.8%. So this game was never in doubt. What that means, and this is the other side to this, is they didn't feel like they had to bring out the kitchen sink in this game defensively. They knew they were going to win this game. I mean, from early in the game on, there was no sense with the way that, and we'll talk about this later, I'm sure, with the way that Drake looked and the offense was able to move the ball pretty much at will, 598 yards. They knew they were going to win this game. So defensively, they were really vanilla. They did very little in terms of trying to bring pressure. It was, we're just going to let the 4 get off the ball straight up field, and that's that. Well, you're going to have to probably do more than that at different points in the year to get pressure when you want to. And they did get a sack at one point. Or actually, it wasn't a sack; it was a tackle for loss from Boykins when they did bring some pressure off the edge from the nickel.
Also, Power Eccles got a sack.
Yeah, and Power Eccles got a sack when they brought him at one point. They decided at one point you could see, like, okay, fine, we'll go ahead and bring a little pressure, and they got some. So I think that's where you have to be careful not to take too much from this. I do think it was a little, I'd like to see more disruptiveness from the defensive line. You've recruited so well at that spot, and you've got so many guys that need to be disruptive that I'd like to see more. But I'm also wait and see because of the way that this was a first game against an outmanned opponent that you knew you were going to beat, and you're not exactly doing everything you think you're going to, even in terms of twists and stunts, to get pressure in game one. You're gonna try to pull that stuff out against that.
Yeah, I mean, they played a ton of guys. Power Eccles, Buck, like you mentioned, the kid, the young man can play 10 tackles, 9 of them solo, a couple for loss, 1 sack, where he sort of just weaved his way or squeezed his way through the traffic in the middle of the field and got that play. I mean, he's definitely a bright spot. Kamen Rucker, like we've mentioned, is a bright spot. It'll be interesting to see how it changes from week 1 to week 0 to week 1, I guess. But watching the secondary, and of course Tony Grimes went out early. Looked like he got his bell rung from where I was sitting, and it's been.
I thought that should have been a targeting play. To be honest, hit him right in the helmet.
Yeah, they don't call it on offense anymore or ever.
Yeah, but Grimes also went low and didn't see what he was hitting. So I mean, the question is, you could have called targeting on both players there because both of them lowered their heads, and
it looked like Grimes was the nail instead of the hammer on that play, though.
Oh yeah, he was.
Well, so what are the bright spots besides Rucker and Eccles on this defense? I thought
Boykins. I think you could mention him.
What'd you see? I thought Balfour and Marcus Allen got, they got an introduction. Storm had an interception. It was good to see him out there for the full game or for most of the game. What else did you see from the defense, Buck, that maybe you sleep easy about?
Well, I mean, to be honest about it, and we've already mentioned this so far, is that A&M got 0 on the ground, basically. They got 1 play of like 20 yards, but everybody else just got stoned. Every other play gets the defensive line just stoned those guys. They weren't giving them up anything on the run, which we could talk about this in terms of Gene Chizik's strategy overall, because the last time we saw Gene Chizik as a defensive coordinator, Baylor's running backs and quarterbacks were running for like 8 jillion yards, while they weren't giving up much in the passing game. That was his MO last time in Chapel Hill. They didn't give up a lot as far as people throwing the ball, but they gave up a ton on the ground. This initial outing by Chizik, exact opposite. So who knows what we're going to see the rest of the year. But the bright spot is the run defense, and I think when they used Power Eccles as a rusher,
Good.
he got the sack, but there are times you could get pressure. Jason was talking about pressuring people, and if you recall back when Mac Brown first took over, the go-to defensive play for being disruptive was Chaz Surratt on a delayed blitz up the middle. And Power Eccles can certainly do that. He's got the speed that he can get quickly to the quarterback once he sees an alley. And so maybe we'll see more of that as the year goes along. But, and again, I think Jason is right. We saw the quick game from Florida A&M. They were going short quickly, getting the ball out fast. And so the defensive line couldn't really be as disruptive as we would have hoped to have seen.
Yeah, looking at Florida A&M big plays, had 8 big passing plays. Of course, that's 15 yards or more. A couple of those were touchdowns. Got to give credit to Jeremy Musa, too. He looked good, and he didn't miss too many throws. And he's a guy that came over from Vanderbilt, didn't play much. They had 1 rush of 21 yards, but otherwise not much on the ground. Jason, just looking ahead, when you speak, and this is for our listeners, when you speak to vanilla on defense, a lot of the hardcore football folks know what you mean. But for the folks that don't follow it and see the stats, see Florida A&M having some success, Carolina not doing anything, exotic or anything, explain what you mean about the vanilla, not only on the front end, but on the back end and at the linebacker position, other than not doing a lot of blitzes.
Yeah, the main thing I'm talking about has to do with just running absolute base stuff. So you've got certain base defenses that are the foundation, the building blocks to everything else you call. And that if you just run that stuff and nothing else, then that's vanilla. So, they ran some, standard cover 4, and it's just standard cover 4 with no adjustments in there. You're not running half coverage on one side, quarters coverage on the other side. There's no mixture on that. You're just running, cover 3 with guys bailing out at the snap and, just standard invert safety. I mean, they're just the very basic type stuff that you run as a defense. And, at that point, that's the stuff that offenses, exactly what you're seeing pre-snap, and they do exactly what you see, and where you're going. There's no confusion in this. Now, as a general rule, modern defensive football, a lot of modern defensive football is about showing one thing at the snap and then rotating out of it into something else after the snap. That's one thing that a lot of teams do. That means that you're not quite as vanilla. So you get guys that it looks like it's going to be, say, press man at the snap, and all of a sudden it rotates to, standard cover 2, these sorts of things. Or you look like you're cover 2 at the snap, and all of a sudden you rotate and a safety drops down and you're running some sort of match cover 3, whether that's Rip Liz or something like that. And then in other cases, you look like it's cover 4, and all of a sudden you're bringing a guy off the edge and you're in a man-free situation. There's just different things that you do to make it so that quarterbacks are not just what you see is what you get pre-snap, and they're just dropping into standard zones. And here's what we're running, and we're going to run it this way. And then you just do it. So, and then also no twists, no real stunts up front, just, get upfield and in your lane. That's vanilla football. And if you can beat teams with vanilla, that's usually good. I mean, ideally, the beauty of vanilla is that if you are just running one thing and there's no disguise, and a guy has one assignment and it's the basic thing that you work on every day as the foundation, well, it's really hard to screw up your assignment. Right? I mean, if you screw up your assignments at that point, then you shouldn't be on the field. But on the flip side, it's like in basketball, you come down the floor and you say, okay, so I'm going to take the ball and I'm going to start in my right hand. I'm going to go through my legs to my left hand. I'm going to cross over to my right. I'm going to come to that spot. I'm going to pull up and I'm going to hit my jumper. And you tell that to the defender before you do it. Now, if you're good enough to do that, well, I mean, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, some of those guys, they did that stuff. I mean, here's what I'm going to do. And then they do it to you. And then you're like, man, I still can't stop them. That's when you're beating teams with the absolute vanilla and nothing else, that's what you're doing. But you better be better than the other team. Otherwise, it's good to come down and, maybe they expect the crossover and this time you just go straight. Maybe they expect you to pull up at that spot and this time you kind of give them a little head fake and move to another spot. That's how this works on defense. And, they were very vanilla last night. They didn't do a whole lot to give Musa any different kinds of looks than what he would have expected pre-snap.
Yep, and he was on 28, 38, 279, 147 rating, 147.5 rating. I thought he looked real good. I thought Florida A&M had some players, didn't have enough of them, obviously, as they sort of wilted down the stretch. But I'm going to take a short second, talk about Johnny T-shirt, and then we're going to get into the really good, the stuff that makes you sleep like a baby if you're a Carolina fan after the break. But Johnny T-shirt, JohnnyT-shirt.com, friends of this podcast, friends of all the Inside Carolina family of podcasts, and certainly friends of the Inside Carolina Premium subscriber. You get 10% off. If you didn't go see him on Franklin Street, I don't know what the weather was on Franklin Street because it looked like it was sunny, but it was a monsoon in the Bowls lot. So probably could have stand buy a poncho from Johnny T-shirt and wear it in the Bowls lot next time we're down there. We moved seats in the arena or in the stadium. First time I've been uncovered in a long time. Of course, it rains on that first game. Should have gotten the Johnny T-shirt and bought some rain gear for the ball game, but it was a fun night anyway, and it's always a good time to shop Johnny T-shirt, jerseys, hats, School of Journalism shirts, anything you possibly need. Alumni owned and operated, and right there on East Franklin Street. Take care of them. They take care of us. Be right back. National guys can pay some bills. It is the day after Carolina beats the Rattlers. All right, Buck Sanders, Jason Staples. I am host Tommy Ashley. It's the day after. Buck, let's talk about some good stuff. Jason Staples said this quarterback guy, this number 10, would be pretty good. And his scouting reports in the preseason said so. And we heard about this close QB competition and all. I'll tell you what, Drake Maye looked better than I thought he would look. The kid can play. He's got some wheels. The cartwheel attempted touchdown. He's got some athleticism. I think Carolina is certainly in good hands here at the quarterback position. And Phil Longo used him correctly as well in his first game.
A couple of things about that. Let's get this out quickly. When we were talking about this in the, I think it was the Over-Under podcast, Jason said that we're going to be very, very happy with Drake Maye in game one. And I said from your lips to God's ears, and God must have been listening. So, yes, and I think probably the verdict is in on Drake Maye. I think he's going to carry North Carolina on his shoulders a time or two during his career. He's just going to be that good enough to keep Carolina in games where a lesser quarterback would not be able to. He was poised. He was accurate. He hit almost 80% of his passes. He distributed the ball to 10 different guys. As you said, I guess I'd say he's a sneaky good runner, but maybe I should take the sneaky part out of it and just say he's a good runner, that he runs well with the ball. He's out there on that 42-yard run, juking people in the middle of the, downfield.
He's an athlete, just like his brother, just like his dad. He's an athlete.
Yeah, he can run and obviously he can throw the ball. He's really, really good. And North Carolina's very fortunate. I would have liked maybe to have seen Criswell in the mop-up duty, just because you're going to need a guy, right? At some point during the year, you're going to need a guy. So beyond that, I thought the quarterback play was great. And One other thing I'll mention about the play of the quarterback, Drake Maye. I don't know how much Phil Longo was able to persuade Sam Howell to get rid of the football when he needed to get rid of it. But apparently he's gotten through to Drake Maye. Drake gets rid of the ball quickly. I think the offensive line is not going to catch quite as much flack in protection this year as they have in the past, because that ball comes out quickly when, Drake has it in his hand. It showed up in the stat sheet a couple of different ways. There weren't as many explosive plays. Of course, North Carolina's not behind. It's not a situation where, you're playing Wake Forest and you got to match touchdown for touchdown or whatever. So you take a little bit risk as a quarterback, hold the ball a little bit longer to make that exceptional play to keep up. But he got rid of the ball in a timely way. I think that's part of the game that maybe has gotten undervalued so far in the reviews I've seen. That how quickly Maye gets rid of the ball. So yeah, first night was a wow with Drake Maye. As far as his receivers went, I think Gavin Blackwell may be the guy that steps up as a reliable number 2 wide receiver. But as far as wide receivers is Blackwell, meanwhile, John Lilly and his tight end group is killing it. Morales is getting balls for touchdowns. Nesbitt had 4 for like 50 some yards. Copenhaver, he's a good player and he's gotten some good coaching. I mean, that 3, and I don't expect he got in the game just because it was a blowout. I think they're going to use him. I think they're going to use Morales. They're going to use Nesbitt, obviously. They're going to use Nesbitt, I think, more as a receiver, not just in the end zone kind of tight end traditional stuff, but as a regular receiver. So that part of the pass catching contingent was impressive. Those 3 tight ends are good. All of them are good.
I see you, Coach Kelly.
So the thing about Maye, and that's what was the most impressive thing to me, is like you mentioned, he distributed it all over the field. There was no, I mean, Josh Downs ended up with 9 catches. I didn't think he had 9. It didn't seem like that many, but when you've got the tight end group, we talked, and there was some discussion on one of the podcasts about how maybe they tell the tight ends they're going to get the ball all the time. Are they really going to? When you're recruiting a guy. Well, it appears from game 1 at least, and it's game 1 against the FCS school, they distribute it. But Jason, I want your take on Maye, but I want to say this. Folks, if you want to see some unvarnished and unbiased opinions, go over to the Alabama 24/7 board. There are 3 separate Drake Maye threads that they're talking about how good that kid is. Now, it worked out for them because they got pretty good quarterback.
Yeah.
but they all, and that's, wealth of riches, but they all say how good Maye looked and how good a player he is. And a lot of them say, wish they still had him, of course. Yeah. But anyway, Jason, your take on what you saw. I thought he looked poised. I thought he looked somewhat fearless, probably caused some hearts to jump when he tried to hurdle 3 or 4 guys. But it's game 1. But it was a good game 1 for Drake Maye.
Yeah, you'll take what you saw there every time. And I tried very hard this offseason not to get into hyperbole, because when I was doing my evaluations, it's one of those like, man, this guy, like, I don't want to oversell what I'm seeing, but my goodness, this guy's going to be really, really good. And, I tried to basically say long term, and I said this, long term, I think he's a better prospect than Sam was. And, the only question for me was, how quickly is he going to be playing at a higher level than Howell? And I felt like there was a good chance that we'd see him playing at a higher level than Howell this year. And I still think that now there's going to be growing pains because of the lack of experience on certain things. And, the receiver position still needs, some consistency, but the guy is what he is. I mean, he's a really, really special player. And I think one of the things that Buck said is really critical here, and that is how quickly he gets rid of the football. He diagnoses things really quickly and gets it out. And, you can see him, he doesn't look hurried. And one of the marks of, really the elite quarterbacks, like the truly elite guys that I look for is, does this guy make playing the position look easy? It might be the hardest position in team sports. I think it is. And you get a guy that makes that position look easy, and I don't care if it's against FAMU. I don't care, does this guy make playing the position look easy? Does it look like he's going back there and going, okay, that guy's going to be open, and bam, get it out and just never get hurried or whatever? When you see pressure, does he just naturally respond and step up and get the ball out of his hands, or step into a void and take the yardage the defense has given him? Quarterbacks who make the game look easy are special. And this is something that I tried to emphasize a few years ago. I mean, I got some criticism. I've gotten criticism over the years at different points for being critical of really good quarterbacks that Carolina's had. I mean, you go all the way back to Marquise Williams. I had at different points some critical evaluations of certain things. The guy was a good player. I always said that. But there were certain things where he made the game harder than it had to be on himself. It's like, dude, get rid of the football going over here, and you never have to deal with that pressure that all of a sudden you got, and then you broke this tackle, spun out, ran around for a little bit, and then made this amazing play. You could have done that right there, and it's a 20-yard throw, and then, you never have to do any of those things. And that was true with Howell at times, where you would see Sam just lock onto one guy, hold on to the football, and I'm sitting here going, come on, dude, get rid of the ball. That was your read. You get rid of it there, and you don't have to worry about it. And then Sam would go and do something amazing, half the time. But it's that phenomenon where the guy that just makes it look easy, coaches love that guy. And, Trubisky was that way to some extent. I don't think to the extent that Maye will. I think Maye is a better prospect than Trubisky was. So you look at that, and how many sacks were there on Howell last night?
Well, Maye, you mean
Maye?
zero?
Yeah,
zero.
There were 0 sacks. And how many times did he was he in danger of being sacked?
Not many, no. And you see it a lot of times where quarterbacks have a go-to deal about how they avoid pressure. Maybe they tend to roll it out when they first sign of pressure. They're going to sprint to the sideline to try to avoid the pressure and get it downfield, or they'll do this or do that or whatever. But Maye has the entire bag at his disposal. He'll climb the pocket. He'll sprint out. He'll, drop back further. He has a way of finding space for himself in response to what the defense is doing. And it is not predictable in any fashion in that way. They just can't count on him. Well, if we force him if we put pressure on him, show pressure quickly, we're going to force him out of the pocket. Well, maybe you will and maybe you won't with Maye, depending on what he sees his best space to be, while he's back there. So he's a different guy. I'm thinking Jason is very right here. He's just different in his instincts and his long training. His dad obviously is a great quarterback and probably was his coach for many, many years. And so he's a different breed of cat, I think. So we'll see. It was Florida A&M, and with Jason, I don't know that makes a lot of difference, but he's off to a great start. We can say that.
Well, he's going to get a lot more pressure from some of the defenses on the schedule. I mean, Fam was not getting a bunch of leakage through the offensive line. So he's going to have immediate pressure at times in ways that he didn't.
They're not Pitt. They're not Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they're not Pitt. They're not Miami. He's going to have to deal with real pressure at points in ways that he didn't last night. But what encouraged me is when there was any hint of pressure, he got it out hot so fast that it just doesn't matter. And this is why, there are certain guys that you can pressure them and it just isn't going to matter. I mean, they're going to get it out and it's like, okay, please blitz me, please. And to me, it looks like he's one of those guys. The game just moves more slowly for this kind of player. And you'll take that every time. Now, I actually did mean to ask how many times Sam Howell got sacked last night too.
Are you talking about
both guys played?
Oh yeah, the command. How many did Howell take?
5
in the Commanders game.
Yeah, so the Commanders. So Howell for the Commanders got sacked 5 times, which is that's par for the course based on last year. And how many did Maye get? 0. And again, May's gonna get sacked some this year. It's gonna happen. There was one near sack last night that he kind of stepped up out of. And it's going to happen, but it's going to be fewer and there's going to be fewer losses. And it makes it easy for offenses when you're always ahead on the leverage. So I think that's the thing that you take away more than anything else in terms of Maye. I mean, obviously he can make all the throws. I mean, I think he showed the deep touch. He showed the ability to, throw, basically any throw from different foot positions. I still would like to see him be a little more consistent with his footwork at times. He did miss a couple that, had a couple of his receivers a little frustrated that were easy throws that in the long term, he's going to continue to polish up and make those throws more consistently. And then it's going to be even better. But I mean, I think you're just seeing the beginning with him and he's going to be one of those guys that's going to have a lot of national buzz the next couple of years.
Yeah, and kudos to the coaching staff as well. I mean, as far as they've emphasized way back in the spring, we heard them talking about our emphasis this year. We're going to get the ball out faster. That's our plan. We're going to do what we can to get that ball out of the quarterback's hands as quickly as we can this year. And mission accomplished, guys. I mean, they part of that is coaching. They're coaching Maye to get rid of that ball as soon as he can. You find your first open option and throw the ball, that kind of thinking.
Well, yeah, he's going to be good. I think some of the good's probably tempered by the level of competition. Some of the ugly stuff we talked about in the first segment probably worse than or not as bad as it looked against that. But anyway, and Maye's 6'5", 220, and he can move and all. So he's got all the physical skills. And he's pretty much, and you could see the way he interacted on the sidelines, the attaboys, the leadership, making sure the next guy we're going to talk about gets that football on his first career touchdown. And Buck, let's get in it. Come to you, Jason.
I do, by the way, agree with what both of you said about Criswell. I thought that they should have given him at least 2 more series. This game was already decided midway through the third quarter. I mean, I guess the end of the third quarter, and I felt like Criswell probably should have gotten the whole fourth quarter. But again, they're trying to get some continuity with the starter and the receivers for another drive or two. I just felt like you want to get Criswell another couple series to run the full offense. But I get it. I just would have liked to have seen that. That's just that's one last reflection there, because Criswell's a really good player. I don't think anybody should think that guy is any less of a quarterback just because Maye is a wunderkind.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there, and I meant to mention it more is, I thought maybe they'd still split reps, at least, maybe half and half given the nature of the game. But yeah, Criswell is he can play. I don't know how much he's going to play if Drake Maye is going to be as good as he is. But let's talk about who I started to go to right there before Jason made the great point about Criswell. I think it's pretty safe to say who running back 1 is, or should be starting Saturday in Boone. Omarion Hampton we talk different, and I've said it for years on this podcast, and I've been watching this kid locally. That's a different guy, and he's fast, he's physical, and he makes plays. Pretty cool to see him have some success. You know, first running back over 100 as a true freshman since Choo Choo.
Yep.
Crazy. What do you
You
think?
know what's really interesting about Hampton is that, yeah, he's 220. He's got thighs, as big as tree
Days.
trunks. He's just a
Careful,
massive
Buck.
human
This is
being.
a family program.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to keep it clean. In any event, he's you look at him and you say, okay, this guy, he's your bruiser. He's your guy that's going to go in and get 1, 2, 3 yards when you have to have it, which is in part true. But he's also returning kickoffs for 29 yards. He's got some speed and he's got some moves, and he's got vision, and he's so far been pretty secure with the ball, which is a must kind of in this offense. Yeah, he's got all of he checks every box that you are looking for in a running back, and some of them he checks twice. So, yeah, I think he should be the starter in Boone, and sure, they've got other backs they should use, and God bless them for coming in and doing what they can. But Hampton, and I got to be honest with you, I thought Petaway was amazing. And now he only touched the ball 4 times, but that on that touchdown run, he left about half the defense's jocks on the field after he went through that line. And he just faked everybody out, and he's so certain on his cuts, so crisp that he just leaves people just standing, wondering what happened. So I like Petaway a lot. I think he's a great lightning to Hampton's thunder, and I want to see him get more carries. But yeah, Hampton. And the thing is, everybody's thinking in general, and we'll get to the receivers more than we've already touched on, but everybody's thinking that, North Carolina's going to go through this big offensive drop off because Howell's no longer there, and blah, 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 blah. The offense, if you've been worried about the offense, stop worrying. Worry about the defense. That's where your anxiety should be for this team, the way it has been since Mack Brown's been here.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Petaway. I think, he's that guy. Caleb Hood looked better than I thought, but something that was interesting to me is Caleb fumbled out of bounds, and I can't remember when it was. I guess it was second half, and Mack Brown mentioned that in the post game.
I think it was the first half when he fumbled out of bounds.
It was over here on the Florida A&M sidelines, and Mack Brown mentioned that we do not fumble, even if it goes out of bounds. You do not fumble, and especially when the room is loaded with talent. There's some pressure on those guys to be perfect or close to perfect, and can't really complain about Hampton at all. I mean, he's going to be good. Petaway, Elijah Green looked good late. Caleb Hood, like I mentioned, DJ Jones looked okay, but I just think the writing is on the wall in that room. Who should be the first guys? Jason, let's wrap this one up. It's we're about 40 minutes in, and it is Florida A&M. But Buck mentioned the receivers. We've already talked about the tight ends. I thought Gavin Blackwell, Buck mentioned it early, I thought he looked really good. I think we're going to see. We did Josh Downs over under 1,500 yards and over under 90 catches.
Well, he's on track for 117, and I took the over on that.
Over on the catches, but I think under on the yards, because there's some guys out there that we have not discussed until now, at least seriously. So
I think Blackwell is certainly the most legitimate wide receiver threat I think we've seen since, aside from Downs, obviously, since Brown and Newsome have left UNC. He looks like a legit, solid number 2 option in this offense to me. Now, he only had 2 catches?
4 catches.
4 catches, yeah. But, I think he could be that guy that you can take a little of the pressure off of Downs, and in fact, maybe give Downs a little bit more space in the offense, because they can't just solely double up on Downs all the time if you got a legitimate number 2 guy and a decent number 3 guy.
Well, the thing that stood out to me with Blackwell was the burst. Once he actually, was into his routes, he showed the ability to run. I mean, it's just real simple.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that when I was evaluating him for preseason stuff, it was like, well, this is one of the guys that has legit track speed. And if he can get that to transfer, that's going to be a really good thing. I think that this is the group that might be the hardest to evaluate coming out of this game. I'm actually going to go back and take a closer look at some things. I mean, there was one play where I watched one of the receivers, and I think it might have actually been Blackwell, just get completely jammed into the backfield, and that was why Maye pulled the ball down at one point. So you had Petaway on a route out of the backfield to the left, and then I think it was Blackwell. It might have been Jones. It was hard to see number at that point. But one of those guys got jammed so badly that they got jammed into the back, and you had the receiver in the back in the same spot. And I think there was a missed assignment in there too. And that's why Maye, he's looking at that side. That was a proper side to start his read on. And you could see him like, oh, I got nobody. And then immediately step up and try to get something out of it. That's the thing that you can't evaluate quite as well in this, because, FAMU, they had some receivers on that team. They had some really good receivers, and they gave Carolina some trouble in the secondary, which is concerning. But in terms of defensive backs, I mean, they're not an ACC level team, not an upper tier ACC level team by any stretch in terms of the defensive backs that they're putting out there. And I'm just still not sure how much separation we can expect from some of these guys, from Jones, Blackwell, Paysor. How much are we going to actually see in terms of separation from those guys against better coverage? And that I think is a concern coming out of this game. I mean, you look at Blackwell, four catches for 36 yards. JJ Jones, 3 catches for 31. Should have had another one that went off his hands on the first throw. They all looked young to me and looked like they've got a ways to go still. So, that's a work in progress. The good thing is that with Nesbitt and Copenhaver and Morales, they're going to have some other ways of helping Maye out. But I think Blackwell did look the best of the rest in terms of the receivers, but I want to see more from that group going into next week. That's the big question mark for me coming out of this game, is still the receiver position. And, Maye can help compensate for that by making those guys look a lot better. I mean, look at what Tom Brady did with, his group of receivers for years in New England. I mean, he won with a bunch of guys that probably aren't winning anywhere else, but you really hope that some of those guys take another couple steps forward over the next few games and can kind of figure out how to get some of that separation. So I think it's a question mark coming out of this game.
Absolutely. Some concerns, some good, probably, pump the brakes on some of the good, step back from the ledge a little bit on some of the bad, but be concerned. Carolina wins 56-24 over Florida A&M. Buck Sanders, Jason Staples. It's always fun to do the day after. We've got at least 12 more, maybe 13 more of these. Get ready, boys.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Sponsored by Johnny T-Shirt. Rate, review, like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Get it all good. We got a lot of podcast content coming up this week. Be sure to stick with InsideCarolina.com to get it all.